Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi. Today we're starting a new Masechta tractate Bekhorot. I'm going to start off with Daf 2 Amud 8. Halokeach ibar chamoro shel Nachum v'hamolcha lo af al pi she'eino rashai hamishtatef lo v'hamkaba himenu והנותן לו בקבלו פטור מן הבכורות שנאמר בישראל אבל לא באחרים. So let's translate that. I'm adding words here. We in the Stanshot edition, so it says, with regard to one who purchases the fetus of a donkey that belongs to a Gentile. So what does that mean? So let's look at the footnote. Halokeach uba chamor shel Nachum. If one purchases the fetus of a donkey owned by a Gentile, or sells the fetus of his own donkey to a Gentile, although he is not permitted to do so in the latter case, if he does not have firstborn status, and he is not penalized for violating the halacha. This ruling is according to that of the Mishnah, and that's in the Mamad Sefer Zerayim, Bekhorot 12:15. And one who sells, so what does that mean? The reason that there is no firstborn status here is that this status does not take effect until the fetus emerges from the womb, as is evident from the Torah's formulation, the opening of the womb. See, e.g. Exodus 13:2. Consequently, if the mother or fetus belongs to a Gentile at the time, the fetus does not have firstborn status. See 3a. Therefore, when a purchase of a fetus from a Gentile is exempt, since the mother belongs to a Gentile at that time. Likewise, one who sells a fetus to a Gentile is exempt because the animal belonged to the Gentile before it was born. See Tosfot. The fetus of his donkey to a Gentile, although he is not permitted to sell large animals to a Gentile. What does that mean? According to Tosfot, the reason for this prohibition is that, as the Gemara says, he abrogates the sanctity of the firstborn from the fetus if it is a male. This is evident as well from the Gemara's comment on 3b that Rav Mari was punished for selling a portion of the rights of a fetus to a Gentile because it abrogated the firstborn's inherent sanctity. See also Mamad Sefer Zerayim, Bekhorot 12:15. By contrast, Rashi explains that the reason for the prohibition is due to the ruling of the Mishnah in Avodah Zarah 14b. No one may not sell live livestock to a Gentile due to concern that the animal will perform forbidden labor on Shabbat, and the Jew is responsible to ensure that his animal does not work on Shabbat. And one who enters into a partnership with a Gentile in ownership of a donkey or its fetus, and one receives a partnership in a firstborn animal with a Gentile, exempts the Jew from the obligation of firstborn status. Therefore, if a Gentile owned even 1/1000th of a female or its fetus, the fetus does not have firstborn status. It is forbidden to engage in such a partnership with a Gentile by having him acquire part of a fetus, or is the abrogating and sanctity of the animal. Therefore, in the case of one who receives an animal from a Gentile to care for, and both the Jew and the Gentile receive a portion of the offspring, or if the Gentile receives an animal from a Jew in a similar manner, if he does not have firstborn status. And as from the Mamad Sefer Zerayim, Bekhorot 12:15, Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh 323, 321:20. A donkey from a Gentile. This means that a Jew cares for or safeguards a Gentile's animal as a contractor who receives a portion of the offspring. The reason for the exemption from firstborn status here is that the animal itself belongs to the Gentile, and the Jew is viewed as having purchased a fetus from him. The same halacha would apply in the case of one who gives an animal to a Gentile in receivership. Although the mother belongs to the Jew, they are partners in owning the firstborn, in order to care for or to exchange it for partnership in its offspring. And one who gives his donkey to a Gentile in receivership, in all of these cases, the donkeys are exempt from the obligations of firstborn status, i.e., they do not have firstborn status and are not redeemed, as is stated, I sanctify to me all the firstborn in Israel, both man and animal, Numbers 3:13, indicating that the mitzvahs are incumbent upon the Jewish people but not upon others. If the firstborn belongs even partially to a Gentile, it does not have firstborn status. Who asks, why do I need all these examples in the Mishnah to demonstrate the principle that a firstborn donkey must belong exclusively to a Jew, the obligation of firstborn status to apply? The Gemara explains all the examples are necessary, as Had the Tana taught that a donkey is exempt from the obligation of the firstborn status only in the case where a Jew purchases a fetus from a Gentile, I would say this is because the Jew brings it to a state of sanctity and that it will not be worked on Shabbat. But in the case where a Jew sells the fetus of his donkey to a Gentile, where he abrogates its state of sanctity, I would say that he should penalize him. Niknasia. Let's see in Hebrew, lik nasei. What's that mean? Kanas, penalty. This word appears frequently in Talmudic sources as both a noun and a verb. It comes from the Latin word sensus, which means an assessment. It was then adopted into the late Greek dialect in the form of kensos, which refers to paying taxes. From there, it spread to Hebrew and Aramaic, where it was used in the sense of a penalty or fine for the action by rendering the fetus subject to the obligation of the firstborn state. Therefore, the Mishnah teaches that it is exempt from its obligations. And why do I need a Mishnah to state the case of one who enters into partnership with a Gentile? The case is necessary to exclude the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says an animal owned in partnership with a Gentile is obligated, subject to accounting its offspring as its offspring of firstborn. And therefore, the Mishnah teaches us that it is exempt from its offspring, counted as a firstborn. And why do I need the Mishnah to state that the fetus does not have firstborn status in the case of one who receives a donkey from a Gentile in exchange for partnership in its offspring? The halacha is already included in the previous one. The Gemara answers, because the Tana wants to teach in the parallel case of, and the one who gives his donkey to a Gentile in receivership, that often does not have firstborn status. And why do I need the case of one who gives a donkey to a Gentile in receivership to be stated? It was necessary because it might enter your mind to say that since the primary animal belongs to the Jew, the Seder should penalize him by treating the offspring as a firstborn and requiring it to be redeemed, lest this case be confused with another case of an animal that a Jew puts in the care of a Gentile, where the Gentile does not own right to the offspring, and the offspring is counted a firstborn. Therefore, the Mishnah teaches us that he is not penalized. The Gemara cites a discussion when the Mishnah is used as a proof. We learn in the Mishnah elsewhere in Avodah Zarah 14b with regard to the prohibition against selling live livestock to a Gentile due to concern that it will be worked on Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda deems the sale of a damaged animal permitted because it is incapable of performing labor, and Ben Betira deems the sale of a horse for riding permitted because riding a horse on Shabbat is not prohibited by Torah law. So let's see the footnote. The footnote for that. The sages prohibit lending or leasing one's large livestock to a Gentile, lest he made it work on Shabbat, which will cause a Jew to violate the mitzvah to let one's animals rest on Shabbat. The sages also decreed that it is prohibited to sell damaged animals to Gentiles, lest one come to lend or lease his damaged animals to them. It is permitted to sell a horse to a Gentile, as it is not used for transporting burdens but only for riding, which is not prohibited on Shabbat by Torah law. The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Ben Beteva. Nowadays, the custom is to allow the sale of large animals to Gentiles. Rambam Sefer Zemanim Hilchot Shabbat 23-4, Shulchan Aruch Yoreh Deif 151-4. See also Orach Chaim 246-3. A dilemma was raised before the sages with regard to a fetus. What would Rabbi Yehuda say to me about selling it to a Gentile? Is the reason that Rabbi Yehuda deems selling the animal permitted there because it is damaged and it cannot work, and the fetus is also damaged in the sense that it cannot work, or perhaps it is permitted to sell a damaged animal because that is not its natural state, it is defective, and is therefore not including the prohibition against selling large livestock. With regard to a fetus, since that is in its natural state, and it will become capable of working after growing up, perhaps it is not considered damaged, but it is not defective. And once there's come to a resolution to the dilemma from the Mishnah, and one who sells the fetus of his donkey to a Gentile, his donkey is exempt from the obligations of firstborn status, although the owner is not permitted to do so. And Rabbi Yehuda does not disagree and claim that he may sell it. Apparently, Rabbi Yehuda agrees it is prohibited to sell the fetus of one's animal to a Gentile. The Gemara rejects the resolution. And according to your reasoning concerning the other cases in the Mishnah, Namely, one who enters into a partnership with a Gentile and one who receives a donkey from a Gentile, exchanged for partnership in his offspring, and one who gives his donkey to a Gentile in receivership, with regard to which the Mishnah does not teach the Rabbi who disagrees. So too, does this indicate that he does not disagree with the ruling in the Mishnah in these cases? That is impossible, as Rabbi Yehuda holds that an animal subject to a partnership between a Jew and a Gentile is subject to accounting its offspring as firstborn, as is evident from the Braita that will soon be cited. Clearly, Rabbi Yehuda does disagree, but the Mishnah does not teach his opinion. Here too, with regard to selling the fetus, he disagrees, but the Mishnah does not teach his opinion. The Gemara suggests coming here a resolution from a Braita. Rabbi Yehuda says that in a case of one who receives an animal from a Gentile in order to care for it and receives some of the offspring in exchange for his work, and it gave birth to a firstborn, they assess his value, and the Jew gives half of its value to the priest to redeem his portion, which is sanctified by the firstborn status. And in the case of one who gives a Gentile an animal in receivership, even though he is not permitted to do so, they say to penalize him by requiring that he purchase the Gentile's portion of the animal for up to 10 times its value, and he gives all of its value to the priest. It is clear from the Gemara's formulation here that he pays the entire value to the priest, not half of its value. It would seem from the straightforward understanding of the Gemara that this is an element of the penalty imposed upon him for giving the animal to a Gentile in receivership. Rabbi Gershon Mor Hagola on 2b indicates that in this case the mother belongs to the Jew, and therefore the priest should in fact receive the entire fetus, not just half of it. Thank you for listening, and that was the end of Amud A, and all the best. Bye.